At the Ferabbee Circus, the only thing dropping faster than ticket sales are bodies. We're talking big tops.
The history of clowns.
And the worst job in all of Midsomer on this episode of
Welcome to Midsomer.
Hello and welcome to Midsomer, the podcast where we dissect all the mysteries, the murders, and the many weird things about the long-running hit TV show Midsomer Murders. I'm your host, Eric Buscher. With me, as always, is my co-host, Eileen Becker. Hey, Eileen.
Hey, Eric. Today we are talking about Send in the Clowns, the 6th episode of the 20th series. It originally aired May 3rd, 2018. It was directed by Nick Laffland and written by Stephen Sondheim. Oh, wait, sorry. No, that was the song. The episode is written by Julia Gilbert. Let's make our entrance again with our usual flair.
Spoiler warning, we will be discussing the events of this episode, including the identity of the murderer. So if you haven't watched it yet and don't want to know who done it, pause this and go watch it. We will still be here when you get back.
They weren't around for the zombie invasion in Finchmere. They soon got bored when they were barred from the local pub.
I went out with a clown once. The most miserable man I've ever had misfortune to date. It's true what they say about shoe size.
Joe Ferabbee fell in love with the circus as a young boy, so much so that he ran away and joined one. Now he's the owner and ringmaster of Ferabbee Circus, coming to Swinton Magna for some performances. At the same time, a creepy clown carrying a machete harasses the village. This is not good for DCI John Barnaby, who seems to have a problem with clowns when daughter Betty wants to go to the circus. Behind the scenes at the circus is a hotbed of problems. Joe is in a dispute with his brother Curtis over the land the circus is on. The stars of the show are Groucho and Oucho, but Oucho's a drunk, and Groucho, a.k.a. Terry Bellini, has just accepted a job with a bigger circus. Groucho's wife, Daniela, is a former aerialist who lost her sister when a maneuver called the Silken Noose went wrong. Now she is a ticket taker, and her daughter Sophia is an aerialist in training while also assisting illusionist Raul Delgado. Daniela won't leave Ferabbee's and tells Joe about her husband's plans. The Barnabys enjoy a nice meal at Denton's, a steakhouse run by wealthy local citizen and town council leader Ashley Denton. As they dine, the power goes out, and the creepy clown appears outside. The next day, the town is freaked out and demands action. Barnaby attempts to reassure them that everything is being done. Then John takes the afternoon off to go to the circus with his family. Just as the clowns take the stage, Sarah and Betty head to the bathroom because kids don't like clowns and Sarah enjoys John's suffering. Groucho and Oucho run around through their routine. Normally, Oucho pulls out a fake gun in the act. This time, Oucho has a real gun, and when he fires it, Groucho is shot dead. Winter arrives to help investigate. Oucho claims it was a joke gone wrong, and Barnaby finds Daniela being comforted by her friend Freya, who is also Curtis's wife. Daniela tells them that Bellini was planning to leave, and also that their trailer was ransacked. Among the missing items was a pendant belonging to her deceased sister. Afterwards, Freya runs to the arms of her lover, Raoul. Winter finds paraffin-soaked rags under the bleachers, indicating someone wanted to burn the circus down. Fleur does some CSI magic and discovers the fatal shot did not come from Oucho's gun, which was loaded with blanks, but instead from a rifle. Two people own suspect rifles, Denton and Curtis, and Curtis's rifle is missing. Only Curtis, Freya, and abattoir manager Mostyn Cartwright had access to it. Yes, you heard that right. Abattoir manager is a job. Anyways, Mostyn says he hasn't seen the rifle, but once the detective leaves, he descends into a secret room in the basement full of pig parts and a rifle. Joe argues with his son Harry over the direction of the circus. Harry wants to update the circus into a gothic fantasy, but Joe wants a place of magic and hope and super boring acts. Harry goes to Denton's and talks to Freya, who works there. Curtis watches the scene, accusing her of sleeping with Harry. He's kind of miserable and controlling. He approaches Harry, promising to fund his future circus and to explain what really happened to separate the brothers. The clown attacks persist. A brick is thrown through Denton's window with a warning. Winter chases the clown through the town, but can only find a shoe. And it turns out Denton was at the circus the day of the murder, claiming to check in on a charity show, but ran away when it all kicked off. The day of said charity show, Denton thinks they should cancel, but Joe insists. He even says Denton should take part in Raoul's act to help show things are okay. Probably a bad idea, because as he lays down for an illusion with swords, he is stabbed to death. Hey, maybe this circus isn't so bad. Let's hop in for a little quick tourist info. This is our first and so far only visit to Swinton Magna, and you can come see the scenic abattoir. You know what? Just keep driving.
Yeah, you do really don't. I mean, we don't even see much of the town really in this episode.
Circus. It's all circus and abattoir.
Yep.
So let's talk about this circus. Is this the lamest show on Earth?
It's pretty tatty. Yeah.
I mean, we were debating, is this seedy or just cheap?
I settled on tatty, which I think is somewhere in between those two.
Every act is the most basic version of a circus act. A lot of the stuff we see are just people juggling or twirling rings. The illusionist act is at least 100 years old. The clown routine, and these are the stars of the show, mind you, is also just as stale, involving every like the classic fake prop gun that has the flag that rolls out and says bang, to the bucket full of paper instead of water.
The pie in the face.
Pie in the face. Like, when Bellini says that he finally got like a job offer from a bigger circus, I'm like, what act did they see that made them want to hire him?
Maybe he went to one of those clown competition shows and really impressed.
I mean, why is this circus so basic?
It's interesting. They did actually use a real circus, and hired contracted with a real circus to teach some of their actors how to do the stuff, and also a couple of the aerialists were stunt doubles in it. So, and that was
in what scene?
I have it written down here.
There's no scene with aerialists other than like at the very end, which we'll go into later. But
yeah.
And first of all, the circus is J. Miller's Circus. You can find it online. They do have a website that does mention that they were in the current, I believe it's in the newsflash section, that they were involved in the shooting of this episode.
Yes, though not the literal shooting.
No.
But I did look at their website. They have a lot of pictures from their current season. It looks like they don't have any animal acts in their show at all. At least not on their pictures.
Which also kind of jumped out to me from the episode, although you did a little research on why they might not have that.
Yeah, well, in 2019, and this episode was filmed in 2018, so this is before it went into effect, but in 2019, wild animals were banned from being exhibited or used in performances as part of a traveling circus in England. Now, Scotland had banned the practice in 2017. Some states in the U.S. have also issued bans starting in 2017, especially in regards to elephants and large cats. But that just includes wild animals, things like horses and those poodles that wear hats and jump through hoops. You can still do that.
Yeah, when I think of circus, I think of two things. There is the classic Ringling Brothers, and then there is the Cirque du Soleil, this circus seemed to be more of the cirque. It wanted to be a little bit more of the cirque, somewhere between the two. Whereas, like, when Harry kind of described his vision of us, like how he wanted to take the circus, that seemed a lot more like the kind of specialty Cirque du Soleil shows that you see nowadays.
Yeah, and I'll get into this a little bit more in the history, but this is more, the Ferabbee's is more of a classic circus, whereas, except for the lack of animals, whereas the newer, more modern circuses are more of the Cirque du Soleil. And if you look online, you can see a lot of them are more themed. A lot of them do have these darker gothic themes or horror themes, which is more appealing to an older circus goer rather than a kid.
Yeah, which is, I will say this is like, this seemed like a child's version of the circus, because we have that interesting opening where it's black and white. We see a young Joe running through the streets, sliding under the tent of the circus for the first time, and everything goes into color, much like the Wizard of Oz. And he's enchanted by the majesty of this circus, which is literally all we see is 17 people in the ring at the same time, all of them twirling something.
Yeah. Now that a lot of that was the J. Miller Circus, all their acts kind of lined up, because you see the part where the umbrella goes up and the paper falls down and the woman's outfit changes. That is a very much a part of their website. That's one of their main photos that they have on there is that magic trick. So
right, but we never actually see that in Joe's circus.
Joe's circus is the tatty version of that.
Joe's circus just seems locked in time. Like, this is like, he saw this thing as a kid. He is locked into this view of a circus as one thing. It is, and that's, I think that's why it feels so old and stale, is like, he's just like, this is the same kind of stuff that entertained me when I was 11. And, you know, it doesn't age well.
Yeah. And there's also this, they don't have the money for the high-end acts. They have this fake Cuban who's doing very old illusion act, with the sword and in a cheap-looking box and everything. Everybody's doubling up on what they're doing, tripling up in some cases. There's only one person who goes up into the rafters. One aerialist. They don't seem to have any tightrope walkers or anything. It's a very low-end circus because they just don't have the money for it. And, of course, my joke was, they ate all the animals, but I don't think they ever actually had any animals because they probably couldn't afford them.
I can see why this circus was going out of business. It was poorly run. And so much so, like, I was actually shocked that the circus was half empty on the charity show, because I figure a lot more people would want to come to a murder circus.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. People love it when things bad happen. Like, and they miss the second murder.
Maybe I think a lot of people will be like, oh, are they going to kill a clown every?
That would be worth seeing.
I'd go to the circus a lot more, I'll tell you. Obviously, the circus is a huge part of this episode. So for Eileen's History Corner, she's going to give us the history of the circus.
Yeah, circuses and clowns, and they don't actually start off together, but we'll get into that. And of course, we always have to start off in ancient Rome because the word circus comes from Latin for circle or ring. And in ancient Rome, however, the circus was not actually circular, but more of an elongated oval, like an ancient Greek hippodrome. And like the hippodrome, the Roman circuses also had horse races, as well as staged battles, gladiatorial contests, and other fun entertainments that are often associated with ancient Rome. The Circus Maximus, the largest in Rome, was created in the 6th century BC, about 600 years before the famous Roman Colosseum was constructed, and at its largest, it could hold over 150,000 spectators, which is a heck of a lot more than the Ferabbees were able to get. After the fall of Rome, the large circuses and colosseums fell into disuse, and we saw the rise of itinerant performers, traveling from city to city and performing at Renaissance fairs all across Europe. Turkey legs, beer, maypole dancing, steampunk weekends, and men without hats doing the safety dance were probably part of all of this, right? There would have been jesters or fools juggling and making fun of the fairgoers. In England, the court jester performed acrobatics and juggling and often rode at the head of the army, mocking the enemy. Jesters could also mock anyone without being punished, and they dressed in colorful motley, wore a cap with bells as a mock crown, and carried a scepter. Shakespeare often featured a fool in his plays, and these characters were often the wisest character in the play, and certainly the most fun. Around this time, the Commedia dell'arte was also becoming formalized in Italy, establishing stock characters that still influence theater to this day. Harlequin is an astute servant dressed in a checkered costume, while Pierrot is dressed in all white with large buttons and a white face. Pierrot pines for Columbine, who breaks his heart when she leaves him for Harlequin. This love triangle is the basis for the famous opera Pagliacci, which translates literally to clowns. This form of theater developed into the English harlequinade in the 17th century. It involved more slapstick than the Italian commedia, and centered around only 5 characters: the lovers Harlequin and Columbine, her father Pantaloon, the servant Pierrot, and the clown, who assists Pantaloon in trying to break up the lovers. It was performed at the end of an evening of more serious theater, with a fairy who would perform some magic that would transform the characters from the previous entertainment into the characters of the Harlequinade. In the late 1790s and early 1800s, English actor Joseph Grimaldi expanded the role of the clown, so much so that clowns were often called joeys. He changed the clothes of the clown from a rustic and tattered servant's garb to a more colorful costume, and was often a rival suitor to Harlequin. This was the development of the white-faced clown. In the decades before Grimaldi was transforming the clown, Philip Astley was developing the modern circus. Initially, he set up an amphitheater to display horseback riding tricks, performing the act in a circle rather than a straight line. The 42-foot diameter ring, which he used, is still the standard size for a circus ring. In 1770, Astley hired acrobats, tightrope walkers, jugglers, and a clown to fill in between the horse acts. In 1773, Astley's amphitheater opened in London. The circus was brought to the U.S. in the 1790s. The first performance in a large canvas tent was in 1895, and sideshows were established by the 1830s. Itinerant circuses started touring around the U.S. and the U.K., and William Cameron Coo introduced the 3-ring circus and the circus train. It became a huge event when the circus came to town. Clowns also developed. Auguste, also called the Red Clown, was developed in the 1870s as a foil for the more sophisticated White Clown, with his white makeup, white clothes, and large ruff around his neck. Traditionally, the look of an Auguste includes a red nose and mismatched oversized clothes. The eyes and mouth are encircled in white makeup on a flesh-covered base, and they are often the recipient of the White Clown's japes, the one getting the pie in the face, as we saw. The character clown also came into being, taking on characters such as policemen, bankers, housewives, and hobos. American Emmett Kelly is probably the most famous performer of the hobo or tramp clown, performing with the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus alongside the Flying Wallendas, holding a handkerchief under their high wire as a mock safety net. The tramp clown is known for his 5 o'clock shadow makeup and his shabby, oversized clothes. Notable character clowns include Charlie Chaplin's The Tramp and Red Skelton's Freddy the Freeloader. An offshoot of the White Clown is the comedy clown, such as Bozo the Clown. Ronald McDonald and Krusty the Clown are this type of clown. This is what Americans think of most when they think of a circus clown. After World War II, the circus began to lose its luster, despite still billing itself as the greatest show on earth, and the shows returned indoors to large arenas. Animal activists also brought attention to the way the circus animals were treated, caged up in small pens, and mocked just because their ears were too big. The famous Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus, which merged in 1919, played their last show in 2017, though they are being revived. More modern circuses have banned animal acts and focus more on music and theatrics and acrobatics, like Montreal's Cirque du Soleil, which is the most famous of these contemporary circuses. Terry Bellini mentions that he was chosen by Charlie Caroli to be a white-faced clown. Caroli was born in Italy, but was performing in Blackpool when World War II broke out, and he stayed in Britain for the rest of his life. He was the most famous clown in Britain at the time, and is mentioned by Chumbawamba in their song Just Desserts, and in other songs and TV shows. While his father, Jean-Marie, was a classic white-faced clown, Charlie was an Auguste. Okay, so the evil clown, which has been around for a while, got a bit of a revival in the 2000s, especially in around 2013. There were creepy clown sightings in Northampton, England, which turned out to be the work of 3 local filmmakers. There were also clown sightings in 2014 in Italy and the US, and in 2016, there were frightening incidents of clown sightings starting in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and then other parts of the US, and then Canada, the UK, and Australia. It was just a clown pandemic. Though the Wisconsin sighting turned out to be a marketing stunt for a movie called Gags, many others were never explained. Probably just idiots like, the guy at the abattoir.
Yeah, just like a lot of it's probably like college kids on a prank and whatnot. The Northampton, England was actually apparently one of the inspirations behind the creepy clown stuff in this episode.
Yeah.
And I remember that. I remember like the reports. And some of the photos, like, I think if you look it up online, some of the photos, like, they photographed the clown and stuff. It's just, it was pretty creepy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's face it, everybody's afraid of clowns. We all know scary clowns, you know, the Joker and all that kind of stuff, and John Wayne Gacy and the serial killer.
Hi, I'm Jim.
And I am Steve.
From Jim and Steve Watch a Show.
Every week we pick the first episode of a unique and interesting show and review it for you.
Have you ever wanted to see a show about
intimidating revolving doors,
weird marble kisses,
horse dancing silk ribbon montages,
awkward alien encounters,
excessive head slapping,
mermen with water guns?
If any of that sounds intriguing to you, give our show a try.
We're available on most podcast platforms. Hope to see you there.
Well, I think there's that, and I think a clown outside of a circus element or a party, like a children's party.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you just you see a clown at a party of the circus, it's like, ugh, they're just clowns.
Yeah.
If you see like a clown at the grocery store, that's weird. Like, what's that guy doing?
Well, especially if he's carrying around a machete.
How do you get that past security? All right, let's do some cast highlights. Lorraine Ashbourne played our grieving aerialist Daniela Bellini. She hails from Manchester, where she regularly performed with the Royal Exchange Theatre with her husband, the actor Andy Serkis, best known for his work in Lord of the Rings and the Planet of the Apes movies. On screen, Lorraine's first film role was in 1988's London Burning, and she went on to appear in Casualty, Playing the Field, Thorn, Child 44, Jericho, Blinded by the Light, The Crown, and Bridgerton. Most recently, she was in the Netflix film I Used to Be Famous. Kevin Eldon was our fifth-generation clown Terry Groucho Bellini. Eldon has a long, strange history. He started as a punk musician, the frontman in a group called Virginia Doesn't, which then became The Time, not to be confused with the Morris Day and the Time who appeared in Purple Rain. This is a British rock band. They played with such groups like The Jam and Bad Manners. The Time became Jerry Hackett and the Fringes, a spoofed 60s revival band. Now, around this time, Eldon began performing stand-up in the persona of the political poet Paul Hamilton. He eventually became friends with the comedian Stuart Lee and started appearing on his radio series. That was kind of the launch of his comedy career. He's since been in several Alan Partridge series, works with the comedian and Midsomer Murders alumnus Bill Bailey on some comedy musical stuff. On screen, he's appeared in Hot Fuzz, Game of Thrones, Four Lions, Hugo, Detectorists, Damned, The Last Kingdom, Sanditon, and Shadow and Bone. He is also the voice of Penfold in the most recent series of Danger Mouse cartoons. Core blimey, Chief. Core blimey. Joni Kamen is ring spinner Sophia Bellini. She's the daughter of Chester Kamen, an English rock guitarist who's done work with Paul McCartney, Brian Ferry, Madonna, Duran Duran, Roger Waters, Seal, and Massive Attack, among many others. Prior to this episode, she appeared in Killing Bono, Doctors, and The Book of Gabriel. After this, she's been in Patient Zero and Very Valentine. She doesn't have a lot of credits. Her next appearance is going to be playing herself in some kind of documentary fiction film hybrid called Metal Revolver Juvenile Incident.
Can't wait for that. Jason Watkins is the terrible circus leader Joe Ferabbee. He's a graduate of RADA and a member of the National Theatre Company. He was nominated for an Olivier Award for his work in A Servant for Two Masters. He got his start on screen in EastEnders, followed by roles in Duck Patrol, Conviction, Finland, 5 Days, Being Human, Trolleyed, The Crown, and Around the World in 80 Days. Right now, he's starring in the MacDonald and Dodd series of mysteries and will appear in the adaptation of Neil Gaiman's Anasazi Boys. Watkins can walk on his hands and does it every week. He should have been a circus act. He even did it at his wedding reception, walking to his new wife with roses in his toes that I am assuming she promptly threw away. Ick. Andrew Gower was circus visionary Harry Ferabbee. He graduated from the Oxford School of Drama and won the prestigious Spotlight Prize in 2010. His first on-screen role was in the show Monroe, and then was cast in a major role in the show Being Human. He went on to The Village, Capital, Black Mirror, Poldark, You, and Outlander, where he played Bonnie Prince Charlie. And most recently, he is in Carnival Row. He also used to perform in the band Emerson and currently plays in Gustafsson. Lorraine Burroughs was Freya Ferabbee. She's also a Radagrad, who was nominated for an Olivier Award in 2010 for her role in the play The Mountaintop. On screen, she appeared in The Doctors, Doctor Who, All About George, Fast Girls, DCI Banks, Hard Sun, Close to Me, and most recently in Pennyworth playing the villain Clayface.
Terrace Maynard played human pincushion Ashley Denton. He graduated from the Guildford School of Acting in 1991 and had his first on-screen role in the 1994 Ken Loach film Lady Bird, Lady Bird. He appeared in Roger Roger, Dream Team, Young Dracula, Father and Son, Spy, The Witcher, Sherwood, and Ridley. He was also going to appear in the Amazon adaptation of Stephen King's The Dark Tower series that was ultimately shelved. Andrew Knott played abattoir manager Mostyn Cartwright. He started as a child actor, appearing in the 90s version of The Secret Garden and Black Beauty. He is one of the stars of the original production of Alan Bennett's The History Boys at the National Theatre, as well as the original Broadway production and the movie adaptation. He also appeared in Where the Heart Is, Sex, Drugs, and Rock and Roll, The Lady in the Van, My Cousin Rachel, and Gavin and Stacey, where he played Dirtbox. Mike Grady is Drunken Les Oucho Morrison. He's had a career lasting 4 decades with performances with the RSC and the National Theatre. He co-starred in the classic show Citizen Smith and as Barry in the long-running show Last of the Summer Wine. He does the voice of Sir Robert Normanby in the Thomas the Tank Engines franchise. His most recent role was in an episode of Doctors. By the way, so when they are showing the photos on the board in Costin, the thing they do every episode, right, with the suspects?
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh.
If you look at the photo that they have for Les Morrison, I feel very strongly that was a headshot for the actor Mike Grady.
Yeah. Yeah, because it looked a little too sober and cleaned up for poor old Les.
It looked very professional. He had his glasses and a nice sweater. I was like,
Yeah.
Also, I had to feel like when he was drinking in the tent, like getting ready for a performance, they just poured booze all over the ground of the tent. God, that tent was going to reek.
Yeah. I did look at one of the sites that gives all the rules for clowns, and being drunk on the job is a big, big no-no.
Yeah, that's a kind of a no-no on most jobs. Jonathan Bonici was our tight pants-wearing illusionist Raul Delgado. He is a Radagrad and lives in Denmark, where he has worked with a choreographic duo called Two Women Machine Show. He doesn't have a lot of screen credits, and this seems to be his most recent appearance. Prior to this, he's appeared in Inspector George Gently, Borgia, Hooten and the Lady, and Beirut.
Now we have one big return visitor. That's Neil Stuke, who played pig farmer Curtis Ferabbee. He also appeared in Secrets and Spies. He's originally from Kent and first appeared on screen in an episode of Poirot. He appeared in Sliding Doors as Defensive Bloke, great credit, Game On, Grafters, The Virgin Queen, The Bill, Reggie Perrin, Silk, Jack Ryan, and This England. He also appeared in I Used to Be Famous with Lorraine Ashburn. Now, in an interview, Stuke was asked about on-screen violence, and he is quoted, "There is a dangerous side. I've noticed recently that just about every poster for an American film has someone holding a gun on it. Just about every single one." Yeah, what about creepy clowns, Neil? Now, there were a number of extras who also appeared in this episode who did background work and extra work in other episodes. They are Atul Sharma, Taj Gill, Al Sawyer, Faith Terabee, Gina Morrish, Deborah Rock, Manoj Anand, Jamie Lee Beecher, Chen Yip Lai, and Lee Byford. Thanks to them, the circus seemed a little more full.
That's it for the first half. We'll be back in a few with the second half of this episode. And we're back. It's time for the second half of Send in the Clowns.
I wonder you didn't want us to see this. It's like something out of a Hammer horror film. Before your time. Everything's before your time.
Barnaby and Winter interrogate Raoul and Sophia, who inform them that Joe was supposed to be in the box, but he suggested Denton do it. Joe is coaching Sophia on performing the Silken Noose, which upset Daniela. Harry is now working with Curtis and is ashamed of something Curtis had told him about his own father. And turns out Denton was in cahoots with Curtis to get the circus kicked out of town for some land deal. So Joe looks unhinged and no one knows who the intended victim was, Joe or Denton. At the Ferabbee farm, Curtis is controlling and threatening to Freya, who goes to her room. At the same time, the alarm in the abattoir goes off and Curtis investigates. He ends up knocked into the suffocation machine and it's night-night, Piggy Wiggy. The next day, Mostyn finds Curtis' body hanging on a hook. When the police investigate, Freya says that everything was fine, just fine, all good, with her deceased hubby. Nothing to see here. Things are looking really bad for Mostyn. First, Sophie tells Winter Mostyn was hanging around the circus the day of the murder. Then Fleur finds evidence that the clown shoe comes from the abattoir. They search the place again and find the cellar that was there in plain sight the whole time. They find the gross room of body parts and the stolen loot from the circus. But no Mostyn. Instead, they track him down, burning the clown costume in the woods. He admits that the whole thing was Curtis and Denton's idea. Use a creepy clown to scare the village to chase off the circus. Geez, Scooby-Doo, where'd they get that idea from? Mostyn was even planning to burn the circus down, but Denton stopped him because that would be crazy. The gross room is because there's a black market for pig's blood to make blood pudding. Also, I assume to feed vampires like Angel and Spike. At the farmhouse, Joe leads the detectives to a secret circus room under the stairs. Turns out Curtis, much like his brother, loved the circus. They had an abusive father, and Joe ran away to escape him. But he left Curtis behind, who suffered further. Joe finally realized that family was everything after Harry received a threatening brick, and hoped to reconcile with Curtis. Meanwhile, the missing gun has magically returned. The detectives learn that Freya makes secret calls to Raoul. She finds him in bed with someone else and knocks his butt out. Turns out Raoul is actually Ray, a con man using the circus to bilk women out of their money. Or something like that. Honestly, he was just kind of gross and proves Freya has terrible taste. The case is finally cracked wide open when the only thing not recovered in the bag of loot is the missing pendant. Barnaby finds that back in the box at the circus where it was supposed to be, which means that Daniela had been to the farm. They confront her as she runs into the big top and climbs to the rafters. Here's the reveal. She never got over the death of her sister, and once Bellini admitted he was leaving, Oucho got good and drunk and told Daniela that Groucho never completed the safety checks that he was supposed to the night of her death, and that Joe covered it up. So she got her revenge. She shot Groucho from a special hole in the tent, and she rigged the sword that killed Denton. Joe had been the real target all along. When she returned the rifle, she found the bag of loot and the missing locket and accidentally killed Curtis while trying to hide. Oopsie. In the end, rather than killing herself, Daniela comes back to the ground doing a perfect silken noose. Showmanship! At the Barnaby house, Betty wants a clown birthday party. So in order to help John overcome his phobia, Flora invites a carload of clowns to their home. And it all ends with John gripping Patty for comfort, saying, "Send in the clowns." There's some weird kills in this one, but obviously I think the strangest kill had to be death by abattoir.
Yeah. And that was an accident.
Yeah. That whole abattoir. First of all, can we comment to the fact that abattoir manager is quite possibly the worst job in all of Midsomer?
But Mostyn seems so proud of it. He said, "Look what he's done for me. I am the manager of this abattoir, and nobody ever gave me a chance." And
Mostyn is a psychopath. He was going to burn down a circus full of people.
he was inspired by the 1944 Hartford Circus fire.
He is a psycho. It feels like Curtis found a psychopath, and he was like, "Yeah, you can kill pigs."
Yeah.
But the whole gross room, the secret pig part room, whoa, that was disgusting, even for this show.
Yeah. Though I can't imagine that there really is a black market for, fresh fermented pig's blood for blood pudding. That just sounds right.
Yeah. But then here's the thing I don't understand is why can't they sell I'm guessing Curtis knew about that, because that's just seemed like a thing he would do.
Yeah, or if nothing else, he would have turned a blind eye to it.
Yeah. So back to the murder itself. Was this all Oucho's plot? because it seems to me like he knew exactly what he was doing by going and telling Daniela what happened.
What's weird is there is no scene. I mean, he mentions it briefly at the end, just as they come to the reveal that, he had talked to her, when he was drunk and said something to her, but he doesn't say what. But there's no interaction between the two of them as characters. So it kind of comes out of left field, that part of it.
Yeah, they establish after Groucho gets shot that every performer also has a separate job, and that Oucho was the safety. That Oucho was the props guy who was also supposed to safety. Wasn't he supposed to safety check?
They never say who the safety check guy is, and that I think would have been also something important to have said earlier, because we don't know that Terry Bellini was the safety check guy, until she's giving her, big reveal. So it's like there are clues that weren't out there at the beginning, and they should have been.
And would you give the massive alcoholic any kind of job at the circus? Like, you check the rigging.
Yeah. I mean, I think he should have been like, you make sure all the non-existent animals are, fed or something. I don't know. I don't think I would have given him the props or safety checking.
No. There's a few loose ends in this as well. Like, we don't see how she manages to steal the rifle.
Exactly, yeah. When he asks her how she got it, she just tells how she returns it.
Yeah, but how does she have at what point did Freya give her the combination to the gun safe?
Yeah.
How did Curtis's body get on the hook?
That seemed really weird, and I know it was all very kind of striking visually to see him hanging there, but she's not a large woman, so, and he's, he's, not small, I mean, he's not huge, but, that's a, literal dead weight that she's trying to get up on a hook. Yeah. And it would have made much more sense, since it was an accident, for her to have left him where he was. That way, it would have looked like an accident, much more so, because this just screamed another murder.
Or is it all automated? Like, the one thing that, because they point out that the whole machine, the whole abattoir suffocation thing, it's all automated.
Yeah.
So, but is it then automated that takes the body and puts it on a hook? It was just like, how would the body, it doesn't, there's a lot there that doesn't really make sense.
Yeah.
Because also, if she put his body on the hook, she hung out for a while. She waited for the job to be done.
Yeah.
Because it was a suffocation machine. One of the big film things is that apparently, in TV, is they make it look like it takes 30 seconds to suffocate someone to death. The reality is it could take up to 10 minutes.
Yeah, or longer.
Yeah. She hung out.
Yeah.
For a good long while.
Yeah.
Also, if the silken noose is so dangerous, why do I find instructional videos for these kind of stunts on YouTube?
You can find everything on YouTube.
Well, I mean,
yeah, the whole scarf thing, it's very common in circuses, contemporary circuses.
Well, not only that, it is a common exercise thing. I know at least 4 women who regularly do scarf scarf training. They're not in the circus. They do it for their own. They just love doing it. It is a common thing.
An exercise that's very good for your core.
Yeah, I don't know. So I don't know. The silken noose is so dangerous, and if it's so dangerous, by the way, why wasn't Joe training Sophia with a net?
Yeah,
I mean, that's the kind of thing is you train with the net. You don't just train. You don't just train without the net and be like, yeah.
Or a heck of a lot of very soft landing pads like they do with gymnastics these days.
It's funny is that they used a real circus for this, and I kind of wonder if the real circus guys were around, it's not really like this. And you're like, we got this circus guy.
Yeah.
We're writers. We know how circuses work.
Or maybe they just said, don't worry, this is just a cheap circus.
Yeah. There's a few instances in Midsomer where they just rip off Scooby-Doo plots. Creepy clown scaring everybody away is at least 3 separate Scooby-Doo episodes.
And they would have gotten away with it if it hadn't been for the meddling detective and coroner.
They would have gotten away with it except if it wasn't for the grieving sister who just ended up murdering them all by mistake. I think the most interesting thing about Curtis is he is a jerk for the entire time that he is alive, right? That we see him. And it is only in his death when Joe fills in the backstory and we find out that, he is an abused child who is abandoned by his brother. Oh, is this why he's so terrified that his wife is going to leave him? Is this why he's so controlling? He's like literally reliving his trauma.
Yeah. That, I think, is where the writing could have been stronger with Joe and Curtis, because they had a father who was so abusive that one of them ran away to the circus and basically abandoned his brother. There should have been a lot more character development and interaction that showed that tension between the two of them.
Also, I feel like that reveal should have come much sooner because the one thing I will say with this episode is I'm used to in Midsomer, the first murder is generally someone we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But by the second or third murder, they are people that we have come to spend time with. And I feel like if we had known Curtis's backstory when he died, that actually gives the death a little bit more weight. It gives it a little bit more of like, oh, well, this poor guy, like it gives it a tragic feel.
Yeah.
Like, it would have given a tragic feel in the moment that we watch it. And you're like, because honestly, he's such a jerk and he's really terrible to Freya.
Mm-hmm.
That when he dies, I felt like, yeah, okay, good riddance.
Yeah. And the thing is that the controlling of Freya comes across less as trauma and neediness and more as just creepiness. Especially when he confronts Daniela at the farm, and it's just a creepy scene there.
Yeah, I mean, it just had, he went from jerk to sympathetic with that one piece of information.
Yeah.
But we never get to actually see him in that light because he's already gone.
Yeah.
How old do you think Joe was when he ran away to join the circus?
It looked like he was starting to develop a little bit of a mustache there. So, I mean, he was starting to get puberty there.
So 12 or 13, and this is probably in the 70s?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you couldn't get away with a 13-year-old kid just running away from home and joining the circus back then.
No, and actually, when I was looking at the J. Miller Circus website, J. Miller did run away to the circus at a very young age and kept getting returned to his family, so...
You noticed a recurring theme in this episode.
I did, and it was this whole theme of duos or couples, twosomes, the two clowns that play off each other, the two brothers, two performing sisters, her twins, and then, Ray Dawkins had two wives already. But, this whole kind of duality, and other than the twin sisters, there's a lot of opposites to the two of them. The two sisters are twins, but the clowns are opposite clowns. The brothers were in many ways opposites, except that we learned that later on that they really kind of weren't.
But also that when you learn also about losing the half, like the two halves make the whole.
Yeah.
And Oucho is probably, let's be real, Oucho's career is over. He's an alcoholic clown. No one's going to want to work with this guy. The two brothers, that sort of falling apart. And then with one's death, there was never going to be resolution. And of course, the lingering trauma of the remaining sister. Ray's wives, they're fine. He's gone to jail.
They'll never get their child support. I also thought there were, and I don't think this was a great, cinematographic episode, but there were cinematography episode, but there were a couple moments that were long shots of the circus that were shot at a level that was almost like a child's view. So it wasn't quite an adult's level.
You mean in the opening?
In the opening, and then a couple shots from the field where it's seen from a at a distance, just before the Harry and Curtis meet together, and there's a scene, and it has that childlike level of looking at the circus that actually does kind of capture what a circus should be. Because it's at a distance, you don't see how tatty it is and everything. So I just kind of liked a couple of those scenes. Yeah.
I thought they did a nice job in the beginning when they, again, sort of going from black and white into color, and that kind of shot of like the you can see sort of the magic that that young Joe is sort of absorbed in. Also the fantasy of this fun place of magic when you live with an abusive parent. And look, those scenes in, there's some genuinely creepy shot scenes with the clown sort of the clown trying to be scary, the abattoir basement shots, like where they're kind of walking through the dark tunnels with just the lights, I thought were, some good creepy choices.
Yeah. It was interesting to balance the creepy clown, the creepy abattoir with some of the more magical scenes of it. The opening does have that very good, because it is actually the Joe Miller Circus that they are filming with their routines and everything. So it does have more of a magical feel to it. And then, those long shots of the circus of this, there's a promise there from a child's level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of the abattoir, by the way, let's just jump on some sloppy detective work in this episode. Is the detectives did not search the abattoir at all the first time around, because the door to the cellar is right there.
Yeah.
They didn't even go near it. They got to the top, like, I don't need to go down further.
Yeah. Yeah. Mostyn just takes them up to the one little overlook, and that's it. They don't even say, is there anything else down there? Or, the
door was right there.
Yeah. At least lean over a little bit and look a little harder.
You know who did some real detective work in this episode?
Daniela and Fleur.
Fleur, a bunch of fun little Fleur stuff. The coroner in Midsomer is also their CSI expert, because she's sitting there figuring out gunshot trajectories. I was surprised they didn't just have like a heavy techno score when she was doing that, so it would look like CSI. Yeah,
I love the two dummies that were lined up so she could see where the bullet trajectory was. Yeah.
Yep. She also talks about dating a clown.
She's dated pretty much everybody.
she has. Also, her choice to help John with aversion therapy is to bring a carload of clowns to his house.
Yeah. Yep.
Here's an idea. Start with one. Start with one. Go from there.
Yeah.
No. 20 clowns is actually not 20 clowns, although that would have been amazing if they had the classic clown car.
Yeah, that would have been really cool to do the classic clown car at that point, where he's just watching and getting more and more frightened as more and more clowns come out.
But Fleur still wants Patty's balls.
Yep. Yeah. There was a nice call out to Hammer Films as they were in the abattoir.
Mm-hmm.
And as we discussed in Death and the Divas, when we discussed that episode, Hammer Films was very much an inspiration for the film company in that episode.
In the home life, so Barnaby has clown phobia. That's called coulrophobia, and it's a fear of clowns. According to some information online, children and adults who fear clowns may experience extreme irrational reactions when they see clowns in person or view pictures or videos of clowns. They may go out of their way to avoid any exposure at all. 1 in 10 adults may suffer from it. And as we see in the episode, one of the treatments is aversion therapy. And apparently, so it looks like they did more research on this than they did trying to figure out how to do circus stuff.
Except that they do call it aversion therapy, which is actually the opposite. This is exposure therapy. Yeah.
Well, they still stuck an army of clowns into John Barnaby's house.
Yeah.
So do you think that was there to help him or to torture him?
I have a feeling that Fleur isn't completely on John's side. She does make him say please at that one point.
It's still the first season of Fleur, and they're still kind of figuring out their dynamic, but yeah, it was just funny. It was just like, we're gonna help you get rid of this clowns by just shoving as many clowns at you as possible.
I did like that Betty got some lines. She got to actually say clowns a couple times. Yeah, so.
Mm-hmm. And of course, as you mentioned, the title and the last line of the episode is a reference to the Stephen Sondheim song "Send in the Clowns." We are not going to play this for you because we do not want to pay for the rights to the song.
But Glennis Johns performed it first on Broadway, and Krusty the Clown has a very nice rendition on The Simpsons.
you think Krusty the Clown sang a wonderful rendition of "Send in the Clowns"?
Okay, it was a rendition. He sang a rendition of it. Probably Judy Collins is probably the most famous rendition. Barbra Streisand has done it. They have money, we don't, so I just sang the first line.
What's your final thoughts on the episode?
I don't think it's one of their best for a lot of the reasons we've discussed. I think it lacked some character development. It lacked some spacing of clues that would have made things make more sense and played a little bit more fair with the audience, with the viewers.
Yeah, the mystery was kind of weak, but I think the biggest element is you have a circus. Circuses are visually dynamic things. And if you're going to keep it like low budget or cheap out on the circus and not create it like at least a visually interesting spectacle, what's the point? It was everything about that circus was dull. Visually, the acts, all of it was just dull. If you're going to do a circus anything, you need to capture a circus that is capture the visuals of this circus in a way that is fun for the audience, because circuses are fun. Like, I haven't been to a circus in a very long time, but I enjoy circus.
Yeah, I haven't been since I was a kid, and it wasn't a tent. And I do remember. I didn't like the clowns. I do remember that. But the things I love and what I think a lot of people love, and which is more of a focus with the more contemporary circus, are the aerial acts. People like looking it up at people doing death-defying feats. There's also the motorcycles in the round cage thing that's very popular, but I can see where they would leave that out because that would have been a very expensive thing for them to have had. So, and they could have had a poodle act.
I feel like if they had done at least some interesting acts in it, then the idea of a circus struggling to survive, I would have been like, well, yeah, this is a good circus. It should survive. I was just watching this going, this is a dull circus. Like, I'm like, why is anybody at this circus?
Yeah.
And then you wrap that up with a very weak mystery. Yeah, it's not one of the strongest episodes. The highlights, of course, are Fleur, and the John phobia, like the giving Barnaby a clown phobia gave Dudgeon some really nice elements to see sort of him. The fun thing with him is that he is always such a, I think we talked about this when we were talking about Sacred Trust. Like, he really uses the power of the office to, power his way through. And him having to struggle with clowns, like, it gives him a little more humanness. It gives him a weakness. It gives him something fun for Dudgeon to play. This is like one of those episodes that really kind of warms me up to John Barnaby, in a way that we don't always get to, because he is very cocky. He is very strong-willed. So.
And the thing is, though, as someone who has studied psychology, to give him this kind of psychological barrier with the chlorophobia, it was kind of interesting as well.
So that is everything that we wanted to talk about in this episode. We want to thank you all for listening to us. If you have anything you want to discuss about Send of the Clowns or Midsomer Murders, please feel free to email us at welcometomidsomer@gmail.com. If you want us to use the email in the show, please say so in your email. We got a lovely email just a couple of weeks ago that they didn't say we could use, so can't really talk about it. But it was, if you sent us an email, thank you. We received it. We haven't had a chance to respond yet. It warmed our hearts. You can find us also at Welcome to Midsomer on Facebook and Instagram. If you liked what you heard, please consider subscribing to us or rating and reviewing us on iTunes. It really helps people find us. Also, tell all your friends about us. We'll be back soon, so we hope you will join us for that. And as we take the road out of Midsomer, we want to thank you for listening and remind you that in Midsomer, the circus can be murder.
And usually is.
Welcome to Midsomer is produced by Eric Buscher and Eileen Becker. All clips in this podcast are used in compliance with the U.S. Copyrights Act, fair use exception for criticism and commentary. Our logo and podcast art was designed by Smeedrai. Our theme music is by the infamous Space.